So, hello and welcome to this, my final webinar of the day. That's going to be the way I'm going to put it. This is our Microsoft product update for the quarter. So what I will try and do through the next kind of half an hour is consolidate down some of the major changes, developments that are coming to the 365 environment from Microsoft, and kind of dilute down what we need to know about that. I will preface to saying I'm not going to talk about Azure or any of the changes there. There's about 4,000 changes that were made to Azure in the last quarter, and it's something that would do with its own update. So this is very much going to be focused on Microsoft 365, talking about that environment. So for those of you who haven't sat and listened to me talk all day, I'm James Dell. I'm Technical Architecture Director at Planet IT, and my job is very much today to talk to you about Microsoft 365 and all the things in the Microsoft world that are changing. As with all of our webinars, if you wanted to drop a question, have anything you need answering, feel free to use the question and answer function on the top, and then we'll open onto the sidebar of Teams, and I'll get to your questions as and when I can. So let's start with the negative news, right? So it's the 1st of April. So as of today, Microsoft 365 licensing has increased in price. Now, so much so that I can't actually tell you exactly how much it's increased, because it depends on what SKU you're buying. So it's different if you're buying business standard, business premium, enterprise licensing E3, E5, A3, A5, and unique licensing like Power BI, etc. The worst case scenario is it's a 40% increase on a monthly subscription license. And what I mean by that is a license where you are only paying for that license for 30 days and have no commitment. Most of the licenses that are on a 1 year or an annual commitment haven't gone up that much, but it's still a price increase. That's compounded by the fact that there was a price decrease from January until yesterday. So it's going to look like quite a big jump. The truth of that matter is that you do need to consider what that does to your overall subscription cost when your renewal's due now. So if your renewal's due later in the year and you haven't tied in on those cheaper prices, you're likely to see a price jump. There isn't going to be much that we can do as a partner, or any Microsoft partner can do to sort of lessen that blow now. That it is what it is. There is a good chance that Microsoft will launch multi-year SKUs, the 1, 2, and 3 year SKUs towards the end of this year, which might take some of that pressure away. But you just need to be budgeting for somewhere say median 15% increase across the board for your licensing. There might be a few spikes. If you're a big Power BI user, you might see a much greater cost increase overall. So that's negative news, right? Let's get out of the way. Not a good place to be, but I wanted to make sure that we covered it because I know that your account managers will have been speaking to you about this, but it's very much the big subject at the moment. Moving into more technical things, we're starting to get some quality of life features into Teams. So initially, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Teams and some changes that have come to that. So the first one, and some of you will already have this feature because it started rolling out for anyone that was on the Canary or early access channels, and it's then started rolling out for some of the users with Teams Premium, and it's going to go through to all users over the next few weeks, is that you now have a real-time indicator for microphone volume level, just like Windows has built into it. So if you drop down the little drop-down arrows you can see highlighted there, you will see a live feedback. That works for any microphone that it provides information back to the operating system. I have already seen a few people say that certain wireless headsets, things like that, and maybe are getting a bit of an intermittent experience, but it certainly helps when someone says, oh, I can't hear you very well. You can at least see what that microphone feedback is doing. It is only a visual indicator. You can't increase the gain or anything at this point, but it's worth knowing that that's in there. You can't decrease the volume of your microphone, as it were. But they're starting to put those quality of life features into the product. So that's the first feature that's now rolling out. So anything where I have in the brackets, like here, this is the date that it starts rolling out, doesn't necessarily mean that you're all going to see it the same date. With Microsoft, all the tenants take a little while to upgrade. So it's worth knowing that that's certainly not an instant fix for you. The second quality of life feature is something that tools like Zoom has done for a little while, and Microsoft are now starting to build into the product. And this is something, if you are sharing your whole screen with someone, it's really difficult to then get back to your chat window, because if you go back to your chat window, everyone can see your chat, and it's very easy to share private information that you shouldn't be sharing. Moving forward, with along that top ribbon bar will be a chat pop-out, which will open a private chat window. Now, when I say private chat window, it's not a private chat between you and the people on the message. It's just a compact version of the chat, but it's only viewable by you. So anyone viewing your screen share won't be able to see that. So it's removed from the screen sharing. So it gives you that ability to pop out teams and then do so without affecting your screen sharing. So I know most people will generally not do a full screen share, but someone in my position where I'm doing lots of demoing, stuff like that, I often share my whole screen with people. And then if you get notifications going off and you need to open up your Teams window, you have to stop the sharing and doing all that. So this is a nice little quality of life feature that's due to start rolling out in June. If you're on an early access tenant, you can actually start to see this feature already, but very close to what they've been doing in Zoom for a little while. A feature that's coming sooner than that, though, so we're talking about starting to roll out in May, is an improved quick share option. And now this is across the entirety of the Teams experience. So this is both inside of the shared documents, inside of Teams, inside of chats, and inside of one-to-one conversations. So when you share a file, or you already have shared a file, the share option is going to be easier to get to. As you can see in the image on the left, it's now at the top of the drop-down menu when you click on the three dots. So it's very much surfaced quicker. But if you're actually inside an active chat, the actual share icon will appear alongside the three little ellipses that allow you to get into the further menu all the time, which means if you already shared a file and you share it with someone else, you haven't got to re-upload it. Now, this is more about behavioral change, right? This is not about really improving the user experience. What we're trying to do here is stop people from sharing the same file 15, 16 different times in different locations. We all know Teams can get a bit messy in terms of if you're sharing in a group, it will upload that file to that group shared location, and then you can do it again to a different group, and you end up with multiple versions of the same file. The idea here is to try and stop people doing that and try to get people to use centralized single document sources. That's the truth of it. It's not really about making sharing easier, but it's something that will help you enforce with your users the approach that they should be taking when they're looking at sharing files between people. Moving forward beyond that, what we're going to start getting in May as well is the ability for people inside of team sessions to request to annotate on your screen. So we can already, providing your tenant has the right settings, will be able to request the ability to share a screen or to control a screen if someone else is sharing. But moving forward, you'll be able to request the rights to annotate on top of someone's screen. So if you're doing a session and you want to do a whiteboarding session, or you want to do something where you're sharing your screen, you're talking about UI, you're talking about anything, you'll be able to request the permission to annotate over it and draw, and everyone can see what you're drawing, and it's identified against you. So quite a nice little quality of life feature again. Someone who does a lot of remote meetings, if you're talking to someone who what we'll look at is changing this element. It's really easy just to do request annotate and then annotate onto it. Again, this is a May feature, but it's likely that that you'll start seeing this towards the end of April into May, and that feature will trickle through to tenants between May and kind of June, July time. But it's a nice little quality of life feature just to make things a bit better. A feature that's coming over from the Outlook world is scheduled message delivery. Now, if you're like me and you don't work the same working hours as maybe some of your colleagues, and you're in a position where you might be starting early or you're still chipping away at stuff late at night, it can be quite disturbing to people's work-life balance if you're messaging something that could happily drop in the morning, but you send it at 3 in the morning or the night before. So the idea here is very much like Outlook, is you'll be able to, in a Teams group, you'll be able to delay the delivery of a chat message to a set time. Now, at the moment, it doesn't tell you it's been a delayed send message. I should imagine Microsoft will change that so that people don't use this to make it look like they're still working later than they should be and try and cheat around organizations' kind of working policies. It will be something that will then say sent via or delivered by delayed delivery. the way this will work is just like normally, there'll be a little drop down next to the send button, and this will then give you an ability to choose as and when that is posted. This will work both on the desktop versions and on mobile versions. It's rolling out now. That said, I've not seen many tenants that I've been working with over the last week that's already got this feature, but it is something that is slowly chipping out, and you'll see over the next few months. I would say it's a sad day, but let's be honest, it's not a sad day really. Skype interoperability with Microsoft Teams is ending, and if you've still got people that are using the Skype client, why would be the question. The Skype for Business client, all Skype clients interoperability ends May 2025. You no longer will be able to enable a tenant to configure communication coming in from Skype or going out to Skype. You will no longer be able to set Teams calling to accept that Skype be one of the methods of notification. So the only people this is really an issue for is people that still got legacy Skype for Business deployments on premise, who have been using those for phone systems and don't want to move away. And you could technically wrap the Teams client around it. This essentially is bringing the end to that. So if you still have in any way Skype in use in your organization, it needs to come to an end. Microsoft will not provide any extension to this, and I would expect around May time to all of those configurations, all these PowerShell scripts, everything that ties to Skype just to be fully removed, because it's technically a security risk if they continue to leave it in place. So if you're still using Skype, really sorry, but that's the end of the days for that. Something that is a real positive, and if you're a Teams calling customer, this will be huge for you. Moving forward, just like maybe some traditional phone systems, you'll have the ability to monitor, whisper, and to barge into call queue hosted calls. So just like an old phone system, if you've got a person on the phone to a difficult customer, as a manager, you'll be able to literally join that call silently and hear what's being said. You'll be able to whisper directly to the person inside your organization to feed them additional information, should that be helpful. And you can barge your way into the call to take ownership of that call should you need to. So you essentially have a private monitoring option. You have the ability to take over calls, and you have the ability to instruct or develop and train someone on the call. Now, these are features that people have been asking for probably 5 years with Teams calling, and Microsoft are finally getting around to it. This kind of now puts to bed the last few things that Teams calling was missing versus any other phone system. The only thing that Microsoft continue not to do is call recording or compliance-based team recording, because they expect you to use a third-party product for that. That's an active decision by them. They don't want to do FCA-regulated or HIPAA-regulated call recording. They want you to buy a product that's dedicated for that. So that they still expect you to third-party. But everything else now exists inside of Microsoft Teams calling. And to be honest with you, I don't see a lot of reasons to buy a traditional phone system in 2025. I use Teams calling all day, every day. Someone rings me, it rings my mobile, it rings my PC. It's all in one place. And I can present outbound as that telephone number. If you ring my mobile, it presents inbound to that system as well. It's a much more functional system than it ever used to be. So I do think that if you're currently in a telephone subscription and you have the right Microsoft licensing at the moment, you can probably save quite a lot of money if you move to Microsoft Teams calling over your existing phone system, and don't let the naysayers say, oh, well, you can't move to Microsoft, all those kind of things. It doesn't really exist anymore. Microsoft have got a porting agreement with Colt. They will move pretty much any number that can be released in the UK into Microsoft Teams, and they will operate the system for you. So a great place to be. Moving on to Outlook, and I am not going to mention the fact that Microsoft Outlook, new, not new, is new, legacy, all that confusion. Essentially, what you should be doing, regardless across the board now, is telling your staff to use the new Outlook, whatever Microsoft want to call it, the new style Outlook, not the legacy client. All of the features that we talk about will only work inside of the new Outlook. All of the Copilot features that Microsoft have released only work inside of the new Outlook. Microsoft are not developing legacy Outlook anymore. Outlook as its new kind of freshened up environment, part of this unified application experience that you're starting to see more with Teams and other applications, is the only one moving forward. So anything I talk about now moving forward about Outlook only works in those, just so you're aware of. So the first one is Outlook newsletters. So this gives you the ability for Outlook on Windows or web. It's not going to work on macOS, iOS, anything like that, to develop professional engaging newsletters with rich elements, built-in tools, and reader engagement features. So you'll be able to do polls and things like that. That's built in to the Outlook feature, and you'll see on the sidebar under To Do, there is literally a newsletters feature. This is trying to chip away at products like MailChimp and stuff like that people are using for internal newslettering. If you're using a system to send newsletters which is based on an old-fashioned SMTP relay system, this is also what Microsoft are trying to get rid of. They're giving you the features, it's built into Outlook, it's super easy to use, and it will follow all the DMARC, DKIM, and SPF security features that you can't do if you're using a traditional mail relay. Something that's been missing for a long time that's now coming to iOS and Android in April is read receipts. You will have to enable them just like you do on Windows. There's a little icon that will appear along the top of the keyboard. And when you go into that menu, you'll have the ability to turn on read receipts or delivery receipts or both. And then when you send the email, it will request them, and users will get, even on the mobile app, the prompt to return those read receipts. So it's now a case of that feature is very much coming back, because for a long time, if you were using anything outside of the traditional Outlook client, you weren't able to do that. A feature that I've been playing around with that's now coming out, and you can see that little new look Outlook toggle, is the ability for Copilot to prioritize your mailbox. Now, may sound a bit terrifying letting Copilot work out what's important to you. Rather than you having that traditional top end, first newest at the top, or do it by group or conversation, this very much can take all of your mailbox and say, this is what you should be looking at. And it puts it in the order where it feels that you're most important. Now, some of the weighting things to be aware of is if you're in an email chain where you're not tagged, but there's 50, 60 people in that email chain, that will drop its priority because it deems it that it's probably not that important if it's basically a mass mailer. If it's something where you're tagged, you'll go higher up. So that's why, as a user behavior thing, you should be teaching people, especially internally, to use tagging in emails. So if I'm trying to direct an email to one of my team, I will tag them specifically in any email, even if it's a customer facing email, because that will enable Copilot to grab that information. It makes it more prominent in their mailbox. So something that will really help people like me, where you can walk away from a day and have 1,000 emails to go and catch up on, because it allows me to focus on the ones that are important. Shifting focus now to look at OneDrive. There's only one update for OneDrive for this quarter, and that's the ability now to do password protected PDFs in the web browser. So if you're in OneDrive for web, you go in there to the portal.365 and you are straight into OneDrive and you have a PDF file, you will be able to, from the settings menu, add a password to it, just like you could do if you had Adobe Pro or if you had it on a local file system. So that's starting to come in. Obviously, this is a April launch feature, but that realistically means it starts rolling out over the next few weeks. Going to 365 more in general now, so we're talking wider spectrum Microsoft 365 now. The first thing that I want to talk about is something that's in public preview. So what Microsoft are testing is QR code-based authentication. So to go in the Microsoft Authenticator app and add alongside passwordless, the prompt-based, the number-based authentication, the traditional sign-in will be the ability for when you get prompted for sign-in on a device, it will pop a QR code up and you scan it in the Authenticator app and it will automatically complete the session token. Now, this is very much targeted at frontline workers. Now, Microsoft consider a frontline worker to be anyone whose role has them not directly sat behind a machine all the time. So nurses, people in factories who are working on the factory floor, delivery drivers, pickers, packers, those kind of people who will come and use a computer but won't stay signed into it, and often will use a shared device. So what Microsoft want to do is they are very much aware that if you do zero trust correctly inside of the Microsoft 365 environment, that you make it very difficult for people to get into a system, because every page they load, every reset will prompt them for authentication constantly. By doing this, it will speed that up, but you're not having to compromise on security. I've had a little play around with this. It's in public preview. I think there's a few things that need refining on it, but I definitely can see it being something that will add value and will continue to develop the Authenticator app moving forward. The other thing that Microsoft have put out is inside of Microsoft Intune, and this is the hot patch feature. Now, you might have heard this talked about quite a lot. Hot patch sounds amazing, but at the moment it's in public preview and it looks like there might be some kind of subscription requirements in the back end of it. But what Hot Patch will enable you to do is enable you to take any running server 2025, or when Windows 11 supports it, the correct version of Windows 11, and patch the operating system without a reboot. Now, this is a huge win for anyone who's trying to do Cyber Essentials Plus certification, NIST standards, where you need to update within 14 days, because users don't restart their laptops. And you know that's going to be an issue, because you're going to come up to doing scanning and you're going to find hundreds of updates that are queued because someone's refusing to shut their machine down. So with Hot Patch, you're able to do that. So you can now manage Hot Patch from inside of the Windows Update settings inside of Intune. Now, as I mentioned, at the moment, it's a public preview feature. It looks like it's completely free at the moment. I expect there might be some related cost. It's most likely that the features for Windows will go into the Intune Suite license and require you to buy Intune Suite. And in Azure, there'll probably be an additional charge for running these features, because there is an overhead for the operational way in which they work. And obviously, Microsoft need to recoup that somehow. And finally, into kind of the wrap up of the M365 world, right? So there's some other bits and pieces that's worth mentioning. So Windows Service Update Servers, or WSUS driver sync, that's now deprecated. So as of mid-April, you'll no longer be able to push drivers out by linking WSUS into Intune. It's very much a legacy feature anyway. People shouldn't really be doing it, so that's been removed. Purview is going to have some new features added to it. So the first one is last access for OneDrive and SharePoint. So that's April, literally as we speak now, it should be rolling out. So admins will be able to apply retention policies based on a query from Purview to say, when was the file last accessed? Now, it sounds stupid, but this was never in place properly. So you were never able to go scan all the data inside of SharePoint and OneDrive and say, when was this last accessed? And then go, right, well, let's add a retention policy to it, because the system interrupts. Sometimes OneDrive syncs, backup tools, things like that would sometimes rewrite the last access date and it would cause issues. Microsoft have fixed that. As of this month, that's rolling out. So you'll be able to do much more powerful things with Purview. And then finally, they've added an Outlook for Windows usage report. Now, you probably go, well, why is this? Well, admins can now report on the usage of new Outlook for Windows inside of the Admin Center. Only for Windows, but it is very much to try and look at how much of your estate is still sat on the legacy Outlook client. This is to support you in trying to move people away. You'll notice that over the next few quarters, Microsoft are very much driving forward this belief, this change that you need to get away from the legacy operating system features. And they're giving you tools and features to enable you to do that, this being one of them. That lovely update wraps up the end of this session from a kind of Microsoft point of view. What I would say is that we do run these updates every quarter. I say we, royal we. Lewis normally hosts this this session, but he's unable to delay it today, which is why I've been covering it for you. And so do make sure you visit the Planet events page, because we will put links up for the next one of these events and the next Sophos update that we just did previously, and anything else that comes up. If you haven't heard me talk about it already today, we do have a live cybersecurity event happening in London on the 3rd of April, which is Thursday. I do believe we might still have a space open for that. I have been on webinars all day, so I don't know, I haven't checked, but do feel free to use that link to sign up. And we do have some additional events coming up, one of them being around how to manage and transform user behavior. So if you're currently looking at phishing training and simulation, or looking at cybersecurity training, we've got a really interesting product to talk about on the 15th of April. It's only a 30-minute webinar. It'll be well worth your time. And we've got workshops all around Microsoft in May. So if you are a Microsoft 365 customer, which is why you're here, we've got some really interesting things about how you master zero trust security. And that's not a product, that's a principle inside of 365. There's about 5 or 6 major components that make that up. And Lewis and myself are going to go through in great detail about how you make that happen. And in the afternoon, we're going to talk about how you get away from Windows 10, because everyone needs to get away from Windows 10. And I'm going to keep going on about it until I stop hearing people say I still use Windows 10. Outside of that, it goes without saying, thank you very much for joining me. I am always available to you. My email address is on the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But outside of that, I hope you have a lovely afternoon and enjoy the sunshine. And I'll see you on the next update, or see some of you on Thursday at our live event. Goodbye.